A severe weather outbreak on the way, with a tornado outbreak becoming more likely this weekend. Welcome in, everybody. Great to see you on this Tuesday. Hopefully we're having an all right day out there and getting prepared now for the storm system on the way. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, those are the days we're watching for that big severe weather potential. And I'll tell you, the trends are pretty concerning for Saturday specifically. I think that's a day that has major tornado outbreak potential if some of the ingredients line up. And that's what we're going to try to figure out over the next couple of days and discuss in today's video, is what those ingredients are and what needs to happen for this thing to fall apart, and or the other option, which is that this blows up into a big time tornado outbreak. Now, if you haven't already, go ahead and like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell for the latest notifications. And I want to say thank you to our channel members. Appreciate you folks. And if you would like to become a member, hit the join button next to the subscribe button down below. All right, folks, let's go ahead and just dive right into it today with this storm system. You can see this is the latest run of our GFS computer model showing the storm cranking up out near the Rockies, moving through the northern plains. Bringing a wintry side and a severe weather side. That's another thing we'll talk about, is that blizzard potential, or at least winter storm potential with this thing as it kind of cranks up. And I think the Rockies are going to get just absolutely dumped on with snow. I think portions of the northern plains are going to get a pretty good little winter storm out of this, with a higher likelihood of a blizzard through areas of the Dakotas, Nebraska, and Minnesota. We'll talk about why that is here later on. Then the storm moves eastbound, a severe weather threat Friday in the plains, Saturday in kind of Dixie Alley, Tennessee Valley, and into the Ohio Valley, and then Sunday into the mid-Atlantic. Us folks here in the Carolinas, Virginia, even up towards the Delmarva could get severe weather by Sunday afternoon. So just a lot to break down in today's video. And like I said, we're going to do it piece by piece. Now, looking at satellite loop right now, I know I said we're going to dive right into the storm, and we really are, trust me. But kind of what's happening right now is important for the storm, specifically this area off the coast of California. I think it kind of probably jumps out at you on satellite loop here. And that little piece of energy is going to actually help us a little bit. That's not our main storm system. That's kind of a little precursor piece of energy. It's going to cross sections of the southern tier of the lower 48. And it might help to kind of stabilize the atmosphere a little bit before Friday. But then I think by Saturday, we kind of rejuvenate some of that instability. That's why I'm a little more concerned with Saturday's threat compared to Friday's threat. And you'll be able to see that on our instability maps when we get there. Another thing, look off the Carolina coastline, folks. What an absolute beast of a little storm here. It was rocking and rolling yesterday in Wilmington. I told you I thought we'd get a bit of a flooding threat. Something I didn't even mention that ended up happening is we had some hail yesterday in the Myrtle Beach area up through Wilmington. Just a very dynamic storm system that one was, and it's very often that these storm systems kind of catch you off guard when you have a bigger storm coming in about 5 days. Some of the little things in the now term kind of go under the radar, and that was probably one of them. We had some just pretty crazy storms yesterday there, and we even had a tornado in the Orlando area. Another thing that probably caught some people off guard. I'll even admit I didn't really mention that in my video, although I did mention, I think a couple days ago, that there'd be a bit of a severe weather threat with that storm. Probably could have gone a little bit more in depth on that, but just one of those freaks in nature. At the end of the day, meteorology is all about predicting things, so I have no idea what's coming the next day, although, I can do the best of my ability, just like everyone else, to kind of look at the ingredients and the numbers to kind of give you a heads up, but sometimes storms like that catch you off guard. I think that one did just a little bit yesterday. Nothing too crazy, but definitely that surprise tornado and some surprise severe-ish storms, if you will, into the Carolina coastline, although I did mention that area could see some active weather. All right, so that's what we're seeing out there right now. If we look at it on radar, yeah, we're pretty quiet right now. There's really not anything falling from the sky in the United States. We've got a little bit of snow up into northern Maine. We've got a little bit of snow into the northern Rockies, but if I zoom out again, I mean, we're all quiet. Even a little bit of rain from that storm system moving into Southern California, LA, Long Beach, up towards Bakersfield, getting some of that liquid gold this afternoon. Same thing down towards San Diego, and that'll be good. Obviously, any rain you get in California is welcome rain. Unless there's some sort of big flooding threat, but not so much with this one. Now, current alerts out there, you can definitely see some active weather out west with this thing. We've got winter storm warnings now into effect for the Sierra Nevadas. That's not even really for the ongoing storm. That's more for the storm on the way. And we do have a couple flood watches down here, but not overly concerned with flash flooding or anything. Again, these are not flash flood watches, just flood watches, meaning that you should get a pretty good heads up before any sort of flooding were to begin. But like I said, any rain in that area is usually welcome rain, even if we have to deal with just a little bit of flooding. Not overly concerned with that out of this storm system, though. Now, east of the Rockies, all quiet. Right now, it's kind of the calm before the storm. Not a whole lot happening out there today. Tomorrow, we could see a couple storms fire up. We'll talk about that. Same thing for Thursday. But the real kind of meat and potatoes comes Friday, Saturday, and then into Sunday as well. Specifically, Saturday, again, being the biggest of the 3 days, I think. And we'll talk about why that is when we break down our model guidance here in just a moment. But definitely looking like a very active weekend ahead. All right, so speaking of that, let's go ahead and start breaking it down for you a little bit more in depth here. This is the latest GFS model. This is our mid-level energy map, our 500 millibar height relative vorticity map for all you nerds out there like me. Basically, where do we have spin in the atmosphere? About halfway up in the atmosphere in terms of mass. And that's what this map shows us. I think doing a pretty good job of showing it. Here's the storm system moving right in. We just saw it on satellite spinning away, and guess what? There it is right there on our mid-level vorticity map. Same thing for our storm off the southeastern coastline. Although the storm out west will be the bigger deal, obviously, as it's going to move on through and begin to impact people. All right, moving it ahead in time. Again, this is this afternoon. Let's get into tomorrow afternoon. Notice our piece of energy out here becomes a little bit less of curvature vorticity, or basically it's not a circle anymore. It becomes a good old-fashioned trough, so still curvature vorticity, but just a classic little area of divergence out in front of it. And what's going to happen with this storm is, like normal troughs do, it's going to pull some moisture out of the Gulf, and I do think we're going to get a bit of a severe weather threat day tomorrow. Now, I'm not expecting a tornado outbreak tomorrow. In fact, I'm not really expecting that many tornadoes in general. I think it's going to be more of a wind and hail kind of day, more of a multi-cell type setup. And you'll see why that is here in just a moment, but definitely going to see some sort of severe storms tomorrow in that circled area. Now, the good news is that storm continues eastbound, and behind it, this is by Thursday, instead of winds out of the south, now those winds out of the south move towards the Carolinas, Georgia, maybe even down towards Alabama and Tennessee. We could see some severe weather on Thursday as well out of that. But behind it, winds then begin to kind of converge. That creates sinking motion. That dries the atmosphere adiabatically. And that's going to limit some of that surface instability. So we're going to kind of get a little bit lucky. You can see what's looming behind it, the big storm system, a massive trough here digging out towards California and really just the West Coast in general. But we're going to get kind of this pump up of moisture tomorrow. Then it's going to die back down on Thursday. So that leaves the next storm system only really about 12 to 24 hours to re-grab the moisture out of the Gulf and try to advect it northward to create a severe weather threat Friday. So I think that's why Friday we'll definitely see severe weather of some kind. We have a ton of wind energy on Friday, but I think Saturday there's going to be more of a mixture of that wind energy with the instability. You'll get an extra day to kind of bring that moisture out of the Gulf, plus a secondary area of low pressure likely to even help enhance that lift of energy northward, or that advection process. All right, moving ahead here. Again, our first storm kind of dies off. Cannot rule out a couple showers in the Carolinas, Georgia, areas of the southeast, to Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi. Again, like I mentioned, that is a very real possibility Thursday. Now, first off, Wednesday we'll have a couple storms. Thursday we'll have a couple storms. I just realized I didn't really pull up a map for that, so we'll do that on the fly probably in the video. But then comes the big storm. Here we go, Friday afternoon. I mean, boy, oh boy, folks. Talk about a vortex. I mean, this is about as strong of an area of divergence aloft as you can get. Basically, what's happening is you see all these circles. Normally, one circle is a pretty strong area of vorticity. We've got like 5 complete circles surrounding each other here over Kansas, and this is just creating a tremendous area of lift in the atmosphere. And that's the number one ingredient. That's the first step to get storms to form. You need something to kind of, make them rise, and this is going to do it. Then the question becomes, though, do we have enough instability for the storms to tap into at the surface to kind of have a bit more of a tornado threat? And I think that's something we're still kind of trying to iron out. It doesn't look like a super outbreak or anything on Friday. I'll definitely say that. I don't think this is going to be, one that goes in the history books as, one of the big days, but definitely a severe weather threat Friday nonetheless, even if not as big of a deal as maybe it may have looked like a couple days ago. Then we get to Saturday, though, and by the way, I'll pause it here. Here's overnight Friday, and this thing pulls northward. This is when the blizzard threat's going to begin. We've got all this cold air behind this thing. We're going to get a lot of wind. We're going to get a lot of kind of a deformation band type of energy here behind this thing. And I think a good band of snow going to set up during the overnight of Friday into Saturday. And then speaking of Saturday afternoon, basically watch what happens here. So we've got this original trough, this original piece of energy. Then the main trough digs back down, and we're going to get a secondary area of divergence or lift out ahead of it by the time we get to Saturday afternoon. And I think that's going to be a time frame to watch once more for severe weather. Again, I think Saturday really trending up. Friday kind of trending a little flat right now. Saturday trending up in terms of severe weather, mainly because the instability is trending up. We're getting more CAPE values, we're getting more surface dew point values to be higher, and I think that's going to be the overlapping of ingredients that really matters for that time frame on Saturday. Then we'll kick it into Sunday. Sunday, again, could also be a severe weather day. We've got a lot of wind energy out here ahead of this trough. That combined with some instability could lead to a severe weather risk once more on Sunday afternoon. And then by the time we get to next Monday, this thing kind of clears on out of here. This is Monday afternoon, and I know it looks like pretty crazy over the east, but again, it's everything out and ahead of it that's kind of creating lift, and at that point, mainly over the Atlantic Ocean. Although we will need to watch little areas of low pressure. Could try to ride up the side of this trough. Could create more areas of thunderstorms on Monday, at least along coastal areas. We'll watch it. We'll see if that's something that holds, or if we end up being fine by Monday. But I think either way, definitely clearing by early next week, generally speaking. All right, so what's this going to look like? That's all the fun meteorology behind it. Well, here's the latest GFS. We'll time it out. Here is Thursday afternoon. I mean, just absolutely dumping snow into the Rockies. I think that's something we're very confident in. That's going to continue Thursday night. And then here we go Friday morning, 979 millibar low, folks. Again, that's the strength of a hurricane, like a Category 2 hurricane, which obviously, it would be a big deal if it were to hit the coast. This is already over land. It's going to be a big deal in our case as well. Now, watch what happens Friday afternoon as the storm gets going, and Friday evening, an area of deep convection beginning to form here on the GFS model. This is into Iowa and back down towards Kansas City, and then that winter weather side here on the back end also becoming a bit of a threat. Now, that's Friday. Let's get it into Saturday morning. That winter weather side really kicking up. We've got heavy snow. We've got ice, just a full-blown winter storm, blizzard. Probably, I think definitely blizzard criteria will be met somewhere into the Dakotas, back down through Nebraska, Iowa, the usual suspect places that would get a blizzard in March, and then into Minnesota. And then watch Saturday afternoon, another blow up of deep convection down here into Dixie Alley, Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama, potentially all the way up into Kentucky and Ohio. And I'll show you that later on. Those are new areas added to the threat for Saturday. But I'm especially worried about kind of Tennessee, Alabama, and Mississippi, maybe even portions of Georgia by the evening of Saturday for severe weather potential and the potential of a major tornado outbreak. And again, I keep using the word potential because that's Saturday. Today is Tuesday, so we've got a ways to go, but the trends have been up for Saturday. Saturday has looked more significant than maybe it did a couple of days ago. You can see why. Another strong surface low pressure developing. That combined with plenty of lift out of the Gulf. Anytime you get a surface low this close to the Gulf and it's this strong, that generally spells trouble for somebody down into the southeast. And then by the time we get to Sunday afternoon, check it out. I mean, those thunderstorms continue. It looks a little more QLCS squall line like by Sunday. I think Sunday will be not as big of a deal as Saturday, but still could see severe weather once more on Sunday. And then you can see this is a Sunday evening. You kind of get another little wave of precip down into the Carolinas. That's what I was talking about for Monday, maybe. It could be another little area of low pressure that tries to ride up the coast. Could produce some rainfall, probably not really severe weather, but a little extra rain. That maybe enhances the flooding threat a little bit by that time frame. And then here we go by next Tuesday afternoon, all clear once again, although probably a bit chillier in the east than maybe we're going to see over the next couple of days. All right, now what about the European model? We should talk about any differences between the two. The same for the Rockies. It's going to snow, I can guarantee you that. Pretty similar on the pressure values, 974, about what the GFS had. Pretty similar on the winter weather side of things. Severe weather-wise, I would say the Europeans actually trended towards the GFS a little bit. Yesterday, the European had that severe weather threat a little bit further south into Arkansas and Missouri. Now it's gone a little bit further north with the GFS, and it looks a little bit more like Iowa, Missouri, seeing the deepest of convection firing here. But I'll tell you, you're not seeing anything down into this area I have circled of Arkansas, Texas, Louisiana, watch that area as well. I think anybody in kind of this black circle I'm about to draw could see severe weather on our Friday evening and afternoon. Just a lot of question marks. Do we get enough lift further south where we have enough surface instability? Do we get enough surface instability where we have enough lift further north? We have all the ingredients on the table. The problem, or I guess the good news for us, the problem if you're severe weather, then is the ingredients aren't overlapping. So we've got the wind shear, we've got the instability. They're just kind of in different places. And we're still a couple days away, so it could trend in a way that they kind of line up a little bit more. Just right now, it doesn't look like that as much as maybe we would need for a big severe weather outbreak, which is good news, obviously. Then we get a Saturday, same thing on the European. Another area of deep convection just explodes here Saturday afternoon and evening, even getting all the way up, like I said, into Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, all the way down south towards the Dixie Alley area, and even into the Gulf Coast. And then by Sunday, gets into the mid-Atlantic, the southeast, and then into the northeast. And that's as far out as this run goes because this is brand new from this morning. And you do see a little bit of stalling of the rainfall here. We'll need to watch that. Definitely could lead to a bit of a flooding threat, I think, overnight Sunday into Monday through the coastal sections of the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida Panhandle, up into the Delmarva. It's a trend to watch for sure. All right, so we're 16 minutes in now. Let's go and break down the severe weather threat a little bit more in depth. We talked about the storm as a whole. Now let's break it down piece by piece. We'll start with severe weather, then we'll talk winter weather, and then we'll end things out with the wind threat and our temperature forecast. All right, so these are surface dew points from the latest European. Now, this is for Wednesday. You're wondering, why am I showing you Wednesday? Well, like I said, we could get a little bit of severe weather on Wednesday. And actually, no, I'm probably not going to really have time to pull it up, but we'll talk about it tomorrow morning. I'll show you the mesoscale maps for it. And I think at that point, we'll be more in range for by the time it gets to further into the southeast anyway. Not a big deal tomorrow, but we do have enough surface instability here, dew points into the 60s. That combined with if we look at our CAPE values for Wednesday, not a huge deal, but definitely a good amount of CAPE, I would say. We've got about 2,000 joules per kilogram in areas kind of in the max here. That's more than enough to cause severe weather. The thing we're lacking tomorrow is, I'll back up the map a little bit, is kind of a favorable wind environment. So sorry, I did not quite have my map pulled up correctly. So let me take a sounding here. And by the way, this map, let me explain it real quick because we're going to be using it a lot. This is what I just showed you. This is the mixed layer CAPE, which is this map that I literally just showed you. It's the exact same thing, but on top of that, we've added hodographs. Hodographs show us our wind throughout the height of the atmosphere. And let me take a little sounding here over kind of the Red River Valley of Oklahoma tomorrow, and let's take a look at it. So we've got a pretty good amount of CAPE. We also have some SIN here, so I think tomorrow is going to be a day where it's not a huge cluster of storms, probably a little bit more of scattered severe storms. The reason I'm not expecting a lot of tornadoes tomorrow is this graph right here. This is the hodograph. This is a lot more of a classic multi-cell type of graph. And I know it's kind of at the edge of your screen here, but basically, whenever you look at Saturday's hodograph, and I'll show you that, you're going to see this big looping kind of profile. That means there's a lot of turning and a lot of speed differences with wind and height in the atmosphere. This map is a lot more kind of scrunched up, and you get a little bit of turning here at the bottom, and then a little bit here, and then you get a lot of speed shear in the upper levels. So this is a lot more indicative of a multi-cell type event. I think this is going to be more of a straight line wind and hail threat for tomorrow. Not to say that there won't be a tornado, but I don't see a big tornado threat tomorrow afternoon on Wednesday. All right, now let's go back. That is for Wednesday. Another thing I mentioned, let's go back to our original map here, our surface dew points. Like I said, this for tomorrow. Watch what happens behind it on Thursday. Let me go back a little bit. So again, this is Wednesday afternoon. Here's Thursday afternoon. You kind of got this counteracting motion. You've got the first trough that's kind of drying out the air a little bit, but at the same time, the next trough out here into California, the big one, is already trying to pull moisture northward. So that's the good news, is the moisture profiles here. The first storm is going to kind of help us out while the second storm kind of tries to reinvigorate things. If we didn't have the first storm, Friday would be a lot bigger of a deal. But because the first one kind of dries us out a little bit, the second one struggles to get huge moisture northward. And this is what we're left with by Friday afternoon. Really the worst of the instability all the way back down near Louisiana, southeast Texas near Houston, and then much less so instability further north. Now, dew points in the 50s gets the job done from time to time, especially when we have as much wind energy as we're going to have. And you can kind of see that again if we look at some hodographs or some instability. Rather for Friday afternoon, because of these lower dew point values, most of the Cape further south into Louisiana and Texas, but we do have some further north into Iowa. So let's take a look now at some photographs. And again, the values here, about 1,000 joules per kilogram. That'd be enough to get the job done up there. And then about 1,000 to 2,000 in that further south sector. Now, I know I keep saying it. Let's get it to the photographs now. In fact, I probably could have just used this map instead of both of them. Let's take some soundings. So we'll start up here in Iowa. This is from the European model for Friday afternoon. And yeah, look at this photograph. You see how it's a lot more bendy here. It's a lot more curved. This is a much more supercellular type photograph. But then the problem is the lower levels, our LCL here, all the way up at about 750, 800 millibars, about more like 800 millibars. That's pretty high up. So these storm bases are going to be pretty high on Friday, I think, further up into Iowa, into Missouri, kind of just that general northern warm sector. And the reason for that is look at the gap here between our dew point and our temperature. We've got a pretty big gap there. So that's why tornadoes are a little less likely, I think, by the time we get to Friday. Not to say we won't have a couple, but these are probably going to be pretty high-based, elevated type convection, which just generally speaking is less likely to produce tornadoes. Also, our level of free convection here, or basically how far the air has to go before it doesn't need help anymore from a front, pretty high at about 700 millibars. Now, it's going to be a pretty feisty front, so I think we'll break through that anyway and get convection. But a lot more elevated further north. Now you look at areas further south at the same time frame. Let's take a sounding over kind of East Texas and Louisiana for Friday. Notice the photograph a lot more like Wednesday in Oklahoma. It's kind of small and just more of a multicellular type photograph here, but we have better thermodynamics, lower LCL, higher CAPE values, basically no sin. So I do think we will get storms further south on Friday as well. And I didn't really see it in the model. I think it'll happen, and probably a little bit more of a severe weather threat tornadically down there. But going to be more of a kind of embedded tornado threat. I don't see the huge threat for, significant tornadoes on Friday further south. So again, Friday, it's just the ingredients not really overlapping is kind of the key there. Now let's take a look at Saturday, and we'll look at the surface instability on Saturday. Here we go, and this is the problem that we're running into. Notice this huge plume of surface moisture gets extended all the way up, and that's a lot more dangerous looking on Saturday, according to this model, the European. And if we do that now with our CAPE and our hodograph map, we'll get it here, or let's back it up a little bit. Now, one thing you're noticing on the European, this is Saturday morning. Saturday morning looks a lot more robust with CAPE. What's happening is the European is saying we're going to have basically no cap in place on Saturday afternoon. So by the afternoon, all the CAPE basically gets disintegrated, or we just have a bunch of what we call crap convection during out the day. It's a term storm chasers use pretty often. I mean, you just got a lot of showers and kind of stuff that stabilizes the atmosphere throughout the day. So you get a little bit less of a severe weather threat. If that happens, we won't have a huge severe threat on Saturday, but I'll tell you, if the morning there's not much on radar, Saturday could be a big day. I'm talking, major tornado outbreak, and here's why. I'll take a sounding. This is further south where the European says, now we'll have a bit of a higher end CAPE, more instability, and this is what it shows. I mean, this is a very strong supercellular hodograph, and we've got plenty of CAPE and a very low LCL, and not much stopping this thing. So again, if we get a clean environment on Saturday, it could be big trouble back south into Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, and surrounding areas, even further north. Don't rule out areas up here into Kentucky. I'll take a sounding here. Really no CAPE to speak of, but still a lot of wind energy. And again, that's just what the model shows right now. It could definitely trend up. Now, what about Sunday? We'll kind of do the same thing here. I'll skip the original map and we'll just kind of show this last one. Some instability on Sunday, not a lot. We're talking 500 to 1,000 joules per kilogram of CAPE. Let's take a sounding, let's say right near Fayetteville, North Carolina. We'll take one here and see what it looks like. Kind of an in-between day. So we've got some curvature in the hodograph here, especially in the lower levels. So that would indicate a little bit more of a tornado threat. Pretty good storm relative helicity. And then, minimal CAPE, but not much convective inhibition to talk about. Right now, I would imagine Sunday's more of a QLCS type day, a quasi-linear convective system, basically a squall line is what I mean by that. Right now is what it looks like. Will it hold that? Will it change? We'll definitely wait and see. All right, so that's a whole bunch of jargon. What does all this mean? Well, this is the latest from the Storm Prediction Center. We've got a marginal risk and a slight risk tomorrow, basically right into Oklahoma, where I said, into the Arklatek. The biggest threats tomorrow, if we look at wind, that's going to be the biggest one. As for hail, same thing. And then the tornado threat, Not a huge deal tomorrow. So basically what I told you earlier. Then we go to day 3, a small little risk in Alabama. Again, probably wind would be the biggest threat, maybe a little bit of small hail. And then we get into Friday, and that's when things get a little bit more concerning. Let me get it to the right day. There we go. All right, here's Friday. So a lot to talk about on Friday. We talked about it. A lot of different ingredients still to figure out, but this is the general area the Storm Prediction Center is going with the highest risk, kind of where the two ingredients are trying their best to overlap, from St. Louis down to Mississippi, over towards Pine Bluff. But anybody from Iowa down to Louisiana could see severe weather on Friday. Then comes Saturday. Saturday, I think, becoming a bigger threat. They've got Birmingham, Huntsville, Atlanta, Montgomery, Meridian, Hattiesburg, Mobile in that enhanced risk for day 5. I agree with that. I will say I think this is a little far east maybe than I would have gone with. I would have kind of shifted this a little bit further west. But we'll see. Maybe it speeds up a little bit. Maybe it slows down. It'll definitely shift more. But the bigger thing here, I think, to mention is look how far north it got shifted. We've got, Cincinnati, Ohio, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, into West Virginia. Heck, even the upstate of South Carolina and the western portion of North Carolina added to the Friday threat area, or Saturday rather, and that would be, for the evening time in these areas further east, and for the morning and afternoon for areas further west. But the bullseye, Atlanta, Birmingham, Jackson, I think that corridor could be a big time threat on Saturday. And then we get a Sunday threat area from Philly all the way down to Tallahassee. Again, we'll see, is this more of a kind of squall line, more of a supercell threat? Right now, I'd say more of a squall line threat, but we'll definitely keep watching it. All right. A lot to talk about in severe weather, right? Well, let's go ahead and talk about snowfall really quickly. A lot of it on the way. Look at the Rockies. I mean, it's going to absolutely just puke snow over the middle part of this week. We're talking feet of snow into the Cascades, all the way down to the Sierra Nevadas, and then into the Rockies themselves, a foot plus of snow into the higher peaks. And then you notice another kind of blow up of higher snowfall values here near Fargo, Sioux Falls, just into portions of Minnesota in general. Right now, the mean in the models is about 4 to 6 inches of snow into this area. And that combined with the next map, which is our wind map, is where problems are going to arise. These are max wind gusts. So again, these are not sustained wind gusts. This will probably be about the highest gust you see during the storm system. This is for Friday morning and afternoon. Check out New Mexico and Texas. We've got wind gusts near hurricane strength. Told you this thing was the strength of a hurricane, so why not get winds in that ballpark? Obviously, we've got frictional forces here helping lower it compared to 100 miles an hour. This would be if it was over the ocean or something. But very windy day Friday, and then watch that wind kind of pull up to where we're going to see the snow. Winds gusting 40 to 50 miles an hour. Yeah, that could create blizzard conditions. And then notice it gets windy in the Ohio Valley on Saturday. Look at Saturday night, potential squall lines, strong straight line winds with thunderstorms. We've got wind gusts near 50, 60 miles an hour. Power outages could be a concern Saturday as well into the east central part of the country from Michigan all the way down to the Gulf Coast. And then you can kind of see, again, look at these very strong winds overnight as this kind of becomes a squall line overnight Saturday into Sunday, and then strong winds into the northeast to mid-Atlantic on Sunday afternoon. Then probably stays pretty gusty behind this thing during the overnight of Sunday into Monday. Final thing, temperatures this afternoon. Yeah, the warming trend is back. Check it out, spring-like weather. I've got shorts and a t-shirt on today, so I'm excited for it. I'm sure you're excited for it. Today's beautiful. Tomorrow, beautiful. Thursday, beautiful. Friday, things obviously begin to get troublesome with severe weather, but still well above average into the areas east of the Rockies, cold into the Rockies where we're seeing the snow, and then everything just kind of pushes east here Saturday afternoon, still well above average, although obviously dodging the storms. And then same thing for Sunday, and then by early next week, probably a little bit of a cool down by next Monday. But I think the warming trend generally will hold through much of March. Whew. All right, folks, so that's all I got for you. It was almost 30 minutes. Yeah, that's a long time to not talk about really any winter weather, but we'll keep you up to date, obviously, and that's what we're doing with these videos. All right, y'all stay safe. I'll see you all next time.